Hi everyone. Kimchi says hi. Hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. This is my YouTube series about my 52-part New Year's promise. And this week I volunteered at the Children's Attention Home, which is in near Rock Hill, South Carolina. I was there giving some speeches this week, but got to keep the promise each week to volunteer, and so I found something locally when I was in that area. This is a nonprofit organization that helps abused and neglected children, which is really hard to volunteer at. What do I mean by that? It's just hard to look at them, you know. At first, when you walk into the room, it's just like a classroom, like any classroom you'd see anywhere in the U.S. And you sort of forget for a second where you're at because of the normality. But then you realize that these children have been abused, they've been neglected, they've been abandoned, and it's really hard to, I guess, fathom that. I went to this classroom as a teacher's aide, so I helped the teacher, run the class. The first thing I did was sit with the kids individually, and they would read to me, which was so cute. I mean, these kids were 6, 7 years old, and I would help them pronounce words that they would miss. I would help them, sound it out, and then I'd go to, another child, and they'd read a small book to me and keep doing that. And I actually felt like I was helping a little bit. Some volunteer opportunities, you're not sure if you're making too much of an impact, but one teacher managing 15 kids or something like that, you can only give so much attention to each kid. And as I was sitting with them and they were reading, I could tell, they don't know how to pronounce this. So I could help them through it. So I thought that was meaningful. There's one kid who was in the first grade who was reading at a third grade reading level. He was reading this little book about the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and he was pronouncing all these words that he really didn't understand. He was pronouncing them very well, but he didn't know what declaration meant, and so it was kind of fun to explain the Declaration of Independence, the Revolutionary War, to him. I tried to say it in a way that really would be understood by a first grader, but he thought it was interesting, learning those words, and then not just how to say them, but what they mean. And I explained actually what what 4th of July is, because he's like, oh, fireworks, that's how he defined it. I was like, actually, the 4th of July is about what you're reading about right now. And so that kind of moment was kind of sweet to see. I explained to the kids what promise cards are, and some of them filled these cards out. One of them said, I will keep my family safe, which, it's like a lot of promise cards. You don't know what's behind it. You don't know what the terms were of this kid coming to this nonprofit and to this school. And you just wonder. After explaining the promise cards to the kids, the teacher moved on to like a science part of the day, and they did non-standard units of measure, which for like 7-year-olds, okay, put it this way, I'm 29, and I was sitting in the classroom thinking to myself, I hope she doesn't call on me to answer what non-standard units of measure are, because I'm not sure, and I'm 29. But it's just like measuring something that without like inches or meters. It's just like saying, oh, we're going to see how many, phones this room is wide, or how many hands this table is wide. And it gets them to understand the consistency of units of measure. And it was kind of fun because one of the kids actually used a promise card as their unit of measure, and she was incredibly accurate, like almost to the point where she would measure this whole chalkboard, and she'd be like, I don't know, I think that's 18 promise cards wide, and she would get it. And then she did it again, and she got it again, and then she missed one by like 2 promise cards, and then she measured the whole room and said, This room is 68 promise cards long, and it ended up being 61, which is like crazy. So I told the teacher that she should be an engineer or something, and to keep an eye out for that skill set. But again, you go through all of these exercises with the kids, and they say funny things or cute things, and then you just remember why they're there, right? And this week, this month, so much in the news with the NFL and domestic violence with Adrian Peterson and beating his child. I remember when at first, a long time ago, Adrian Peterson's son, was in the news, and I made a promise that I would, if I ever suspected child abuse, that I would tell the authorities. This was supposed to be in honor of Adrian Peterson, to say, your son was abused. I want to make this commitment. I can't imagine these people, what's going through their heads when you beat a child. I mean, you're just an animal. And the best we can do is to be kind to kids, be good mentors, and if you suspect something, you got to have the courage to say something. A lot of people, I think, will just say, oh, it's none of my business, or maybe the kid's just yelling and something, and we just make an excuse to say, oh, I'm not gonna bring up this. I'm not gonna cause any drama. Well, you know what? Sometimes we need some drama. Sometimes, we need to get in sticky situations where we stand up for somebody who can't do it for themselves. And if you can't do that for a child, if you can't, when you suspect child abuse, if you can't do that, then I mean, what type of courage, what can you do if you can't do it for that? And sometimes I think that these hard moments when you got to do something tough, when you got to, put your head into somebody else's business, the reason why you can do that is because you make a commitment. You say that if I see this, I'm going to do something. And as dramatic as it is, sorry, Kimchi's leaving, you just follow through because you made a promise. So that was this week's volunteering opportunity. Tune in next week and we'll see what I'm up to. Peace.